Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Central Texas Life, the podcast. Since 1969, Waco Family Medicine, or formerly known as the Family Practice Center, has been providing needed medical care to a really important community in Central Texas. And my guest today is Dr. Jackson Griggs, who is the CEO of the Waco Family Medicine. Now, so you've recently rebranded. Why did we rebrand when we always called it the Family Practice Center?
So Waco Family Medicine is probably the fourth name that the organization has been. In 1969, it started off as McLennan County Medical Education and Research Foundation, which is a mouthful. And then the Family Practice Clinic, Family Medicine, the specialty of family medicine, rebranded to Family Medicine in I guess around 2000, and so we shifted from family practice. There was a period of time where we were Family Health Center, but one, we wanted to anchor our identity very much in this community. So Waco felt right, and family medicine being whole person care that appreciates not just medical care, but understands a person as a whole. So mental health, oral health. So we thought family medicine is the right name. And because all of our clinics, we have 15 clinics, and folks didn't know we were all aligned, a part of the same system. And so we thought Waco Family Medicine, one brand, all of our clinics, all of our services under that brand. And so it was a good opportunity.
You do serve a large community. How many patients generally every year?
We're very careful about our counting because we report it to the federal government every year, and in terms of our counts. And so when we say we have this many patients, we know down to the exact number. Last year we served 61,394 unduplicated patients. And that's in about 75 zip codes, but the overwhelming majority are right here in McLennan County. And we have one clinic in Bell County and Temple, but 14 clinics are in McLennan County. The majority of those are in Waco. So we have one clinic in Belmead, one clinic in McGregor, but the rest are here in Waco. And
you serve the community, I guess, the at-risk kind of needy folks, but it's not necessarily a free clinic. Well, let's talk a little bit about how all that part of it works.
So community health centers, there are 1,400 centers across the United States serving 1 in 11 Americans. So we are a part of a wide network of clinics. Now we're a private nonprofit that's run by a community board, but the larger network, the affiliated network of health centers are across the country, and we're all participate in shared associations. And what being a community health center means is that the federal government sort of put their stamp of approval on your center, meeting all the appropriate regulations.
Sure.
It's not a government entity. We're not run by the government. We're run by our community.
But lots of oversight.
But we have, there are some regulatory oversight that we report to. And what that allows us to do then is to get some grant funding to take care of those who are uninsured, as well as to bill for public insurance at rates that offset our costs. So while we see about a third of our patients are completely uninsured, another third have Medicaid, and then another third are a variety of commercial insurance or Medicare, Medicare Advantage plans, CHIP, et cetera.
So it's kind of a sliding scale that folks would pay, depending on their resources.
Exactly, right. For those who are uninsured, we offer a sliding fee scale. Mm-hmm. So one is we don't turn anyone away for inability to pay. So if we have someone who comes to us and just doesn't have a penny in their pocket, we're gonna see them and provide them the same excellent primary care that we do everyone else. But we do ask that folks report income strata, so we understand what kind of benefits they can receive when they come see us. And for those that fall below federal poverty level, we ask for a $10 nominal fee when they come see us. Now, this is primary care services are valuable, and we end up, of course, using other funds to offset the costs of those visits, but we do like folks to contribute some to their care. So we ask for $10 at the door for those who fall below federal poverty, and then between 100 and 200% of federal poverty. Federal poverty for a family of four right now is, I think it's around 27,500. So it's for those between 100 and 200% of federal poverty, we have a sliding fee scale depending on income.
Now, you stepped into this role, 2019? I think,
2019,
following Dr.
right?
Roland Gart's much beloved
Very
in the
much so,
community,
yes.
and certainly there, I know. Kind of big shoes to fill, and you jumped right in, and then COVID happened. And you really played such an important role in educating the community, and so much that Waco Today named you 2020 Person of the Year, and had a wonderful article that I was able to kind of study a little bit more about you. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about, your background and what brought you to this place. Family medicine, number one, and the work you're doing now, which I would think is a lot of budgets and a lot of fundraising, which we will talk about in a bit. To hear a train.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's part of the ambiance we have here on the podcast. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about you. I think you grew up in Dallas, right?
So yeah, my childhood was split between Dallas and Abilene. So Texas my whole life.
Sure.
3 years in San Antonio, 10 years in Dallas, and then high school and university in Abilene. So I was at Abilene Christian University, and then UT Houston for 4 years, and then came here to Waco to train as a family doctor, and have been here ever since.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that aspect of Waco Family Medicine and that the training of all these doctors. I mean, that was really kind of the beginning, the genesis of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there was a need for more docs. I mean, and so now this is one of the top resident programs in the nation, I understand, for family medicine.
That's exactly right. So I guess starting back in 1924 is when the first time the first instance that I'm aware of when the city began to invest in what was called commonly at the time indigent care for those who were underserved or didn't have adequate means to pay for their health care services, and the city paid a stipend to. It was Providence Sanatorium in 1924. And then in 1942, that investment shifted over to the health district who staffed a physician. And so for the 40s and 50s and 60s, the care for those who were uninsured or who were unable to pay for their health care came through the health district. And then, we recognized that we were kind of in a crisis point in the 1960s as far as healthcare in general, and particularly healthcare for those who had unique socioeconomic vulnerabilities in the 1960s. There was one physician for every 1,200 community members. The national average was one physician for every 600, and that's all physicians.
Wow.
So that's not just primary care, that's across the spectrum of different. So we had half of the physician density of the rest of the country in the 1960s. The average age of physician was 51 years old in 1965. So we had an aging population of physicians. There was not a density and a very, very small percentage, I think it was 9% of the physicians practicing in our community were primary care clinicians. They used to call them GPs, general practitioners, or primary care physicians. So there was a recognition that we were in dire need. There was overuse of the emergency rooms. The hospitals were footing the bill for what would otherwise be in primary care, an office visit, and so the community got together. I mean, this is something that we continue to see as being, I think, one of the reasons that Waco is such a bright spot across the country, and that is that we know how to collaborate. We really care for each other, and not just at an individual level, but at a collective level, at an organization level. We we see there's a problem, we join together and solve those problems as a community. I mean, I hear that from funders that are state and funders. I hear it from national groups. Waco stands out in this way. So I think this was an example of that in the 1960s, where business leaders, hospitals, medical society, even some church leaders were involved in saying, okay, what do we do about this crisis? And round about the same time, there was a movement going on at a national level in healthcare, from a transition from general practitioners having 1 year of training after graduating from 4 years of medical school. So 4 years of medical school and 1 year of training to become a GP that time, to really developing a specialty that focuses on whole person care, that understands that the person is not just a collection of organs. A person is a meaning-making creature that is more than the sum of their parts. There is a mind and a soul and a spirit that makes us us. And we're a part of a community, and that community impacts our health, and how we live our life impacts the community. So understanding health in a broader context was an emerging understanding in the 1960s, and the specialty that was informed by some of those sort of philosophical underpinnings was family medicine, and that became a board specialty in 1969.
So relatively recent when you think about it.
Yeah, very recent in terms of the medical specialties. So concurrently, there was this kind of national movement in primary care, and locally we were saying, okay, we've got to fix this problem. So very forward-thinking and insightful leaders in the 60s said, let's form a family medicine residency program, family practice at the time, family medicine residency program, so that we can, one, take care of those who are in need, and two, so that we can develop a pipeline for our own community, so that we wouldn't be dealing with the same issues in 1989 that we were dealing with in 1969. And so we were the first family medicine residency program west of the Mississippi. So we were an early family medicine. Yeah, really were.
Yeah.
So this is, I guess our 50. We're coming on our 53rd year. Yeah. And we took our first class, and so the organization was established in 69, took our first class in, I guess, June or July 1st of 1970. And now, now we're in the top 2% of all family medicine residency programs in the country. We have 800 applicants for 12 slots. Very difficult to get into.
It's a very small pool of
That's right. We're very, very selective.
Yeah.
We're able to, really pick from the cream of the crop across the country of those who are interested in family medicine. Doctors have to go through a number of standardized tests in order to get licensed. And those standardized tests begin in medical school. So we know how well folks are testing based on their standardized scores when they apply for residency programs. Well, those residents that we select are they score the same as what we call prestige specialties, so orthopedic surgery and anesthesiology and dermatology. So our residents could go into any specialty, but they choose family medicine, and then they come here. Of course, we screen them thoroughly for character and for a heart of compassion and for integrity. Interpersonal skills before we give them a position, but underlying all of that is an academic ability to be really an exceptional physician. And then we train them really aggressively for 3 years. We're a unique training program in family medicine because we don't have other residency programs that are in our community, sort of competing against our residency programs. That gives our residents wide experience. It creates really nice relationships for our residents with physicians and the healthcare entities that are in our community. So our docs spend time not just in clinics at Waco Family Medicine, but also they spend time on the wards of Ascension Providence and Baylor Scott and White Hillcrest, in labor and delivery and surgeries, and on the med-surg floors taking care of patients. So they get great experience training at both of our our hospitals here, as well as in the outpatient or ambulatory clinic setting.
And you graduated hundreds.
Yeah, we've graduated
of new docs,
over 450.
Yeah. It's amazing, yeah.
And 81% of the family docs who are practicing here in Waco are graduates of ours. So we're really proud of the fact that we have met the vision, the goals of our early leaders in the 1960s who said we need to provide excellent primary care to our community, and we're going to do it through the residency program. We feel like we have through the years contributed to that.
But there are exciting days ahead, and when we come back, we're going to hear about some big plans for Waco Family Medicine. Stay with us.
Foes and heroes. Gonna tell you about foes and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Mike.
And we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Bros and foes and heroes. Gonna tell you about bros and foes and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, this is Sarah.
And I'm Carter.
And this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and
vinyl.
So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
And we're back again with Dr. Jackson Griggs, who is the CEO of Waco Family Medicine. It's a delightful story that I was able to read about you in the Waco Today article when you were Person of the Year. And that's that you originally thought you wanted to be an English prof.
That's right.
How did you then decide, I think medicine is really what I want to do?
Well, so I mentioned that I was at Abilene Christian University. I was going through a whole lot of big kind of life questions at the time. What do I believe? What do I believe about my own life and story? What do I believe about the universe and my place in it? And the person who his name was. His name is Daryl Tippins. He was an English professor of mine. He ended up being provost at Pepperdine for a number of years, and I believe he's good friends with Judge Ken Starr, who was one of your
Judge
guests.
Starr was at Pepperdine.
Yeah, he was, and so he was a guest. In fact, it was a really I think a compelling episode of your podcast with Ken Starr. So, but Dr. Tippins. He became a mentor and someone who helped me to understand questions of faith and questions of what it is to be human suffering. So I took a Shakespeare class from him and a literary criticism class from him and a 20th century British drama class from him. So I was just I was trying to get as much of him as possible. But he ended up being an important mentor for me. And watching, I think, him, his impact in the world, caused me to really seriously consider being an English professor. Ultimately, I recognized that my call was to medicine, and while I deeply loved the humanities, I wanted to kind of do something with my hands and do something with people in a clinical setting. And so, I seriously considered surgery, one of the either general surgery or one of the surgical subspecialties. Had a really exciting cardiology experience, rheumatology experience in med school. So I kind of, was all over the map in medical school. And but when I found family medicine and began to study,
you were kind of told, don't do family medicine.
I really was. I was
no.
I was trying. There were folks who. I remember the chief of medicine pulling me aside and saying, "Jackson, you don't want to be a family doctor for all these reasons. You want to specialize, et cetera." and I almost took the bait. Talked to a friend who is a family doctor, and he said, well, let me tell you about my day. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. Let me just tell you about my day so far. I saw this case, and let me tell you about this next case. But as he was describing the care that he was delivering, he was also illustrating that he understood the individual not as pathology. It wasn't, let me tell you about the diabetic. It was, let me tell you about this wonderful community member who I was able to serve in this kind of way. And he was able to share with me how the health behaviors and the psychology of a person are wove with their experience of illness and their understanding of their illness and their own values. What do they think about the disease process and their goals? And just that orientation of, no, this should be patient-centered. This isn't disease-centered. It's not organ-centered, but the care should be centered around what the patient desires and their goals and what they want out of their life and experience. Healthcare, illness, suffering are all so uniquely experienced by each individual. Science tends to be an approach that sort of universalizes things.
Mm-hmm. Just very cold and
absolutely. And there is definitely a place for that in research and in development of new medications, in approach to diagnosis using technology. But if you try to just approach healthcare through that cold, objective lens. I have a friend who I don't know which Agatha Christie that she read this in, but this friend who's a physician says that Inspector Poirot, who he says these sage things once in a while. He said, "We murder to dissect." And when she said that to me once, and how that applies in medicine, we almost have in healthcare in the modern era we have almost said we have to eliminate the humanity of an individual in order to understand their constituent parts. And I think that that's an error. I think that medicine was swinging way too far in the direction of thinking of the human being as just a series of cells and tissues and organ systems, and miss the fact that each of us experience health and illness in our own stories in health and illness through very, very unique ways. So I think all of that played into to why I decided, well, family medicine is the right specialty for me.
Well, and I think when I think about what a doctor does of a day, so much of what you do is education. Mm-hmm. It's explaining to someone what AFib is and right. with the heart, and that really it's crucial, number one, for a layperson to understand what's happening to their heart. But also for then down the road, and these are the things that you need to be doing in order to maintain your health. It is a big component is education.
Yeah, and I'm told that the word doctor has roots in the idea of teaching. Uh-huh. Medicine uses words in very discrete ways. In other words, a word in common vernacular. When we're just chatting, I might use a word that has 3 or 4 different meanings. Mm-hmm. And in medicine, we really try to use words in very, very specific ways so that we can communicate without vagueness and without ambiguity. But it also means that we kind of have our own language. And that helps to move through very complex discussions in the clinical environment. But when we begin to relay that to the person to whom it matters the most, the patient in front of us, mm-hmm. If we're not good translators, then we may know a whole lot about the physiology or the pathology of a person who we're serving in a clinical environment. But if we can't relay that to them, what good is it?
Really?
In other words, I think that a very, very kind of base understanding of a physician's responsibility, a rudimentary kind of level 101 understanding, which doesn't take into consideration all that we're discussing right now, is, well, I have an obligation to diagnose the patient and to come up with a right treatment and to prescribe, to assign that right treatment to that right patient. And then, I'm done. I can just walk out of the room and just hope for the best. What we find is that doesn't yield at a population level, that doesn't yield health and thriving. That doesn't lead to human thriving. Yes, it is a requirement of good practice, but by no means is that sufficient. And just so that it's, I'm not miscommunicating, I think that an evidence-based understanding of the literature and accurate diagnosis is utterly essential. I expect of our residents that they have a deep understanding of the science.
Sure.
I just think that that's where too many physicians in our history have sort of, in recent history, have stopped. I don't think that they have understood. And this is not, I don't fault our physicians. It has been cultural. We have had a real cultural shift towards thinking that the quantifiable things are the most essential. That enlightenment thinking, that the technological is really what defines the truth. Mm-hmm. And I think that the human experience, and I think that we're appreciating this in a kind of more postmodern world, that the human experience is far more nuanced and far more complex than just that very scientific cold rendering. We murder to dissect. We can't, in other words, to dissect something out, we almost have to eliminate that humanity of it.
Yeah, deep stuff. You've got big plans, though, ahead for Waco Family Medicine, a major building. So let's talk about that. And you've got a lot of money already raised, which is exciting.
When I became CEO. I was asked to speak to a community group, and what sort of spontaneously came out of my mouth that first time I was talking to a community group, sort of extemporaneously, I said, that it occurred to me that was in fact the truth, what I'm about to share. And so I've been recapitulating that over and over and over ever since, because I think that it's right. Waco Family Medicine was born out of the community. It exists for the community, and it is sustained by the community. In other words, without community support, we would flounder. I don't know that we would make it without community support. And we're in a building that was built in 1982. We've outgrown it. It is fit for a purpose of primary care that has shifted, and which is something of interest to me. We can talk about if helpful. But we, 40 years later, we recognize that if we're going to, the organization has existed for 53 years. If we're going to thrive for the next 50 or more years, that we need to anchor our organization in a facility that reflects the organization, our DNA, who we are, how we operate. And so that by the community, we have seen just such a beautiful and encouraging response from the community.
I think they certainly see the need for Waco Family Medicine and want to help any way they can. Your total is what, 61 million? I think.
So,
something like that.
With
with building costs being what they are.
We went through multiple phases of estimating. One of our key. At the very beginning we said, okay, what are our values here? Well, creating a place of hospitality is essential. Another one of our values was that we are really good stewards of the dollars. Some of the dollars that we receive, we know are come from tax dollars, in the form of federal grants. Also, we have so many generous folks in our community who have given, and we want to be really good stewards of those dollars as well. So we stewardship is really key. We first looked at, can we remodel the building that we're in, and there was just no way to do it in a cost-effective way. So then we set about, okay, let's look at a campus master plan. Let's have an expert master planner come in and help us to estimate. And they gave us a figure, and then we had the designer builder come in and work with us in kind of a phase 2, and that was changed a little. That amount was changed a little bit, but not by much. And so $61 million was the amount that we anticipated. And of course, then we hit this period of economic volatility and rapid inflation, and commodities being kind of all of the one day copper is one price, the next day copper is so much more expensive, and so on. So we are looking at a $65 million project, and that is all in. So that's the whole project. Good. It'll be 143,000 square feet, a 4-story building, right there in the heart of the Brook Oaks neighborhood, where we have been, for the last 50 years, where the neighbors need us and where we want to stay. But that building is going to be is one that's really fit for purpose for primary care, not just in 2022, but primary care in the foreseeable future. It allows us to continue to grow training as well as to grow as an organization in order to continue to fit the needs as Waco grows.
Well, it has certainly provided such wonderful care for folks. Also provided training for amazing doctors who are coming out of the program. How can folks learn more about your project? Maybe they want to help with the plan. Our website is probably the first place to look, wacofamilymedicine.org, and
it
Your
has
Facebook page too
Yeah,
is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. I appreciate that.
Lots of activities and things. That's very, very good.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So find us on Facebook or on website. Our development director, Carlos Hinojosa, would love to hear from anyone in the community who has an interest in what we're doing. And maybe it's that community members want to give, and maybe it's that you just want to learn more about what we're doing. But do reach out to us. We, as I said, we have from the beginning existed for the community, and the community governs the organization. So it's important that that we hear from the community.
Yeah. Well, I like to end these little chats with a little questionnaire similar to the one that the late, great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actors Studio. So this is my take on it, so we get to know you a little bit better. Jackson, what is your favorite word?
Oh, my goodness. What is my favorite word? The English language. I have a kind of a
you're going to be an English prof?
A lover's quarrel with the English language. I love it and hate it all at the same time. A favorite word. Serendipity is a fun word.
That's a great word.
I don't know that it's my favorite, but it's the one that comes to mind that I'm enjoying in the moment. So serendipity.
What's your least favorite word?
Oh, my least favorite word. I think right now it's, I think because I am seeing racism in a new way right now, and how it has gotten baked into our systems and how ubiquitous racism is, I think that I have a particular distaste for racism right now. So maybe it serves an important role in terms of being able to understand it. So I don't, but what the word represents right now is really, I think, causing me some heartache.
I get that. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Well, I do. I'm reading Walter Brueggemann right now. He's an Old Testament theologian and scholar, and that is certainly quickening my imagination and thinking. So that I think reading particularly theology. I love poetry and read poetry for fun. I garden. My wife has gotten into Texas native gardening. Oh yes. Which right now in our drought, I've been glad for. Right. So I love to have dirt underneath my fingernails on the weekends. Yeah.
Well, so conversely, what turns you off creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
I think that there comes a threshold of stress where you can only drive emotionally, mentally, physically, with your RPMs in the red for so long before things begin to shut down. And I mean, frankly, after the last couple of years, I begin to notice, some things. Constant stress that just doesn't, it begins to affect you at a soul level. And so, right now I'm kind of more dialed into what, particularly among, in the clinical environment, what brings us to life. If stress is the thing that kind of begins to be soul killing, what are the things to counter that? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of exploring that right now.
See your doctor while you're sitting there. That's good. What sound do you love the most?
Oh, goodness. The sound of nature. I love to I've been camping for years and years, go out tent camping. A few years ago, I went to Canyonlands and spent kind of 7 days in solitude that just was so healing for me. So being out and away and just listening to creation sort of do its thing is just really refreshing to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what sound do you not like?
Oh, I don't like the sound of parents in anguish over their children. Mm-hmm. And, I've had too many times and have heard that sound, and it's still,
Yeah,
still's hard.
I'd go with you on that. What other profession we talked about would you like to have tried? You thought about being an English prof, but anything else you wanted?
I was having a conversation with, I have 3 older sisters, one of, and they're all just absolutely wonderful human beings. And I was recently having a conversation with one of them, and we were talking about what do we want to do one day when we retire. And and she came up with this term. She said, I think the idea of a lay minister at large sounds appealing. In other words, not necessarily someone who is, a church minister that's trained and of the cloth and all that stuff, but just sort of someone who is, loving people out at large. I thought that's a great vision for retirement, a lay minister at large. So one day I aspire to become a lay minister at large.
Okay, well that's good. Very good. What job do you know you would not want to do?
I have come to appreciate the value of really good accounting. And I have recognized how important it is to have excellent accountants. And we have some absolutely magnificent accountants that I'm so proud of at Waco Family Medicine who do really, really good work. And I think I may admire them all the more because I know that I could never do that job.
Right. And I've had some people sit there and say, a doctor, we need him, but I just couldn't do that. So yeah, there's always something out there. We appreciate them, but no, it would not be our cup of tea. Well, the last question is, when you arrive at the pearly gates, what do you expect to hear?
Oh man. That's that, there's some things that I just feel are way above my ability to imagine. I hope I hope to hear let me embrace you, Jackson. I think that's what my hope is. I see you, I know you for who you are, and come embrace your Father. That's my heart's desire, and I hope that's what I hear.
Oh, that's sweet. I thank you so much for what all you're doing in the community, for this relatively new role you've stepped into, and where Waco Family Medicine is going in the future.
Well, it's a total pleasure. It's an honor to sit with you, Ann. Thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure.
This has been delightful. So Waco Family Medicine, again, you can find it on their website, go to their Facebook page, and contribute. That would be great.
Absolutely. We certainly need it.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again. Bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.